Hey guys, we're in the premiere week of Superman, and the official premiere of the Superman movie took place in Los Angeles, and the social embargo on the movie has been lifted, and these details came out a while ago, but I wanted to bring it here to the channel so you guys can get an idea of what the movie is about. And what is this social embargo? It's when you can give those first impressions on social media. You can't write a review, you can't give a grade, but you can give a general idea of the movie, and I spent all night collecting this information to make this compilation video for you guys to get an idea of what everyone's talking about with the Superman movie. Also, information came out about how many post-credits scenes are in the Superman movie. So, guys, the movie has already premiered, and I also watched it, including making this video along with a review of the movie without spoilers, but that video isn't ready yet, so it won't come out now, but it will soon. So, in today's video, we're just going to talk about what critics thought of the movie. So guys, there's a lot to talk about. Before we start the video, don't forget to click the like button, comment below, and subscribe for more content like this. Also, follow our other social media accounts, Instagram and Threads. There I will also update you about this universe we love so much. Now, I'll comment on the first reactions to the Superman movie. I'll focus on positive reactions, and as expected, the reactions to the movie are very positive. Generally speaking, when we see first reactions after a premiere, it's hard for critics to trash a comic book movie during social embargo. In this case of Superman movie, what I'm seeing here is that at least 70% are praising the movie, and there's another group that says it's an okay movie that could be better, and some are a bit disappointed. Those reactions remind me of Flash reactions a bit, which makes me a bit worried. To tell you the truth. But since I saw the movie, I'm not that worried about comparisons with Flash. But if I hadn't seen it, maybe I'd be more worried because there were 2 or 3 people criticizing it more deeply. So we have Brandon Davis, who's a well-known critic in comics, and he said, Superman is a triumph for DC Universe. It's a comic book brought to beautiful, live-action life, brimming with hope and fulfillment. It actually elicited tears of joy from me. It's a Superman for everyone. David Corenswet was born for Superman, and Clark Kent loved it. And I fully agree with all those words because it really seems like a comic book that came to life, and also agree with David Corenswet part. Brian Hyatt, Superman is great. It is probably closest in tone to Raimi's Spider-Man movies, but far more fantastical. That leaked review is going to end up as major outlier. This opinion is really positive compared with Spider-Man Sam Raimi movies. I wouldn't compare it with Sam Raimi, though. I think there are other things you could compare. And now let's move on to a slightly tougher review from Eric Marchin. Superman falls flat instead of flying high on recycled thematic elements that made James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy an underdog story we could root for. Here, it champions an egotistical franchise starter built on previous iconography to reflect bland political rhetoric. Well, like that, everyone has their opinion, but I think the guy went a bit too hard. I don't know if I understood what he meant by previous iconography. Is he referring to the Donner films? Because I think this James Gunn film is different, quite different from the Donner films. I think, I'm not sure if that's what he means, but yes, the film has a political part. It's an important part of the story, and that's one of the points that might generate more controversy about the film, in my opinion. For example, during its opening week, I can see it becoming a controversy, not exactly because of the film, but because of how our world is today, you know? Here, Brian. James Gunn, you did it. You made me look up, and the gun did not jam. This felt like a comic leaping off the silver screen. Not sure how people doubted this for a second. Nicholas Holt's Lex is terrifying, yet so animated Superman. Here we only have a more positive review. I would say that I'm leaning more towards this side of him, and you'll see that many reviews will say that this film is a comic book come to life, and it's great to see that people are really enjoying Nicholas Hoult and his acting. Jeremy Kazieva. James Gunn absolutely nailed it with Superman. From the music and VFX to the camera work and humor, he crafted the ideal, lighthearted, kid-friendly family film for the summer. Every character had standout moments, especially Crypto. Man, this definition here, he crafted the ideal, lighthearted, kid-friendly family film for the summer. This phrase here, I think defines almost 100% of the film. You know, I think that's it. Zach here said, Superman is the best film adaptation of Superman. This is what we have been wanting for years. David Corenswet is perfect as the symbol of hope, while Rachel Brosnahan steals the show with a stunning performance as Lois Lane. Nicholas Hoult is also fantastic as Lex Luthor, and Crypto is awesome. This review was very positive. You can see that he's going to give a fresh tomato to the film. And he highlighted the trio, which is more or less what we're seeing, right? Many people are praising the trio, in this case, David, Rachel, and Nicholas Hoult. And this is the first time we see someone highlighting Rachel's performance. I'm even surprised they didn't do it before. And it's also in Zach's first impression that he gives information that the film has 2 post-credit scenes. I wish I could say more about it, but I really don't know if I can talk about it. There are 2 post-credit scenes, though. Now we have what seems like one of everyone's most surprising opinions so far, because Grace Randolph loved Superman. You all know Grace Randolph has some beef with James Gunn, and everyone thinks she hates James Gunn's films. But in this case of Superman, she thinks it's Superman's best movie she's ever seen. Look at what she said. When James Gunn gets out of the way and lets his work speak for itself, it's incredible. It's not perfect, but darn close, and made me a believer in Gunn's DC. Well, if she thinks it's Superman's best movie, then she probably liked it. Right here, we have a very important critic from Canada, Peter Howell, and he makes a somewhat mixed review here for Superman. Not the superstar to DC Universe everybody had been hoping for. James Gunn is brilliant at conjuring spectacle and creating alien realms, not so great at storytelling. But I completely disagree with this sentence. David Corenswet plays a boyishly sweet Superman, constantly getting his ass kicked. He'd be better as the lead in a Dudley Do-Right movie. And I think it's very curious that he cited this movie because it's a movie starring Brendan Fraser. In my opinion, he has a face very similar to David Corenswet when he was doing The Mummy, and I think both actors are very similar. Rachel Brosnahan makes a spiky Lois Lane. Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor is more obnoxious than villainous. The first criticism we're seeing here is Luthor. The real star of the show is Superdog Krypto, who steals every scene he's in. I'd rather see a movie about him. I think there's a movie about him, right? It's called DC Superhero Pets. It's not exactly the same, but it's almost the same thing. And so this is a big critic, right? Who didn't like the movie. And I think that makes it clear that this movie won't be a prime work that you say, my God, you know? I'm not even sure if the general public will like the movie. I was even surprised because it really has mixed reviews. Reviews that praise things about the movie, but also show that the movie isn't all that. You feel it in the weight of words, and that's why it reminds me a bit of the reactions to Flash. That's what happens, right? When you release Social Shipment shortly after premiere, what we usually see are very positive reviews, and that's what happens with almost all DC and Marvel movies. And in this case here, there are indeed many positive reviews. It's just that I'm really surprised that there were many people criticizing. That's something I wasn't expecting to see from these first reactions. And here, Joe Blow site, which is a very well-known site for trailers on the internet, and he said, "We saw Superman, and it was a mixed bag for our critic. Not a disaster at all. Has some great moments, but not as good as hoped for. Oddly, the movie shortchanged a vital character, Lois Lane, and surprisingly Clark Kent. Lots of soups, not much Clark." This is quite a negative review, right? You can see that the person is quite disappointed. They were expecting the movie to be better, but it wasn't. Now, I didn't understand what the person meant by changing Lois Lane. Honestly, I didn't understand what they meant by that sentence. Maybe they're referring to Lois Lane from Donner or some other Lois Lane from cinema. But so Lois Lane is Lois Lane. I don't know what else one could ask for from Lois Lane. Poser movie. I wasn't a big fan of Superman. The cast makes this movie worth seeing. Everyone worked wonderfully together. Krypto. However, I couldn't get past 5-second attention span humor. While there were few memorable scenes, the script is its kryptonite. The script is its kryptonite. That's one review where the person recognizes positive things about the film. In her opinion, how they work together as cast, which we always talked about here. James Gunn always knew, how to create good characters. He always managed to get involved with them. And she's recognizing that, recognizing actors' talents, but she didn't like the script. Scott Menzel, James Gunn's Superman feels like he tossed every Superman comic book and his entire filmography into blender and hit puree. Corenswet's solid, Brosnahan's great, and Holt is doing something not exactly sure what it is mess narratively and tonally. But hey, at least it's refreshingly fun, entertaining, and not boring. Think of it as if James Gunn's Suicide Squad had a baby with James Wan's Aquaman with a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy sprinkled on top. I consider this a mixed review, right? The guy praises some things, thinks the movie isn't boring, thinks the movie is fun. Probably on Rotten Tomatoes, it's an evaluation that would be fresh tomato. But he also shows that the movie has its weaknesses. The viewer Anon, who is a very well-known insider, has given many insights over the years about this Superman movie. He also gave his first impressions. A Superman movie is pretty good. There's less of an overarching plot than a series of episodes. Some are great, Superman versus Kaiju. Some are not. Superman must escape interdimensional prison. Easily James Gunn's weakest comic book movie, but I still had fun. Viewer Anon then enters into this criticism that it is positive, but somehow seems a bit disappointed with what happened in the movie. Sean Chandler, Superman was my most anticipated film of the year, and I left the theater with a smile on my face. It's possibly the most comic booky live-action comic book film ever. It fully leans into the wacky sci-fi. It really feels like a comic book or Justice League Unlimited on screen. Okay, this is something I'll talk about in my review. This comparison with Justice League Unlimited. So I can understand who says that. I don't think this person is wrong. But if it's to compare with a Superman cartoon, I think it's much closer to my adventures with Superman than with Justice League Unlimited. And then you give your opinion. So because My Adventures with Superman is a good Superman cartoon. It's not super extraordinary. My God, the best Superman cartoon of all time, but it's a good cartoon. And this comparison for me isn't even a matter of quality, but this whole story of the movie is something I would see in an episode of My Adventures with Superman, you know? Because I think the tone of this story isn't exactly the tone of an episode of Justice League Unlimited. I think it's different things, but they're not exactly alike. DC Films News. Superman is flat out good, brimming with hope, optimism, and wearing its heart on its sleeve. It's a different kind of comic book film, one that truly feels like a comic brought to life. David Corenswet is superb, a Superman for all seasons. Another very positive review. Sean O'Connell uses an interesting word here. He liked the movie, but he says it's assumably comedic, which might not work for everyone. But regarding DC movies, it's a delightful blast. So that's it, guys. I took various reviews and tried to balance the positives and negatives. I think it's clear that it's not unanimous. Probably it's not a 100% movie on Rotten Tomatoes, even because it has 82% approval. From critics, I think many people understand that the movie can be a bit divisive. But one thing that I think is almost unanimous is that everyone is praising David Corenswet as Superman and Rachel Brosnan as Lois Lane. Luthor, I see that it's a bit divisive. There are some people praising Luthor and others saying that the performance is somewhat strange. I think that's part where I disagree with these reviews about Luthor's performance. The Crypto also gets 100% praise. No one criticized it. And also another thing that was criticized was this script structure, this episodic thing, right? The plot that generally people criticize more. And of course, I didn't see all these analyses, right? This is just a snippet of what I saw. But definitely there are more positive opinions than negative ones. But guys, that's it. These are the first impressions. Remember that this is not a review or anything. These are just first impressions. Opinions can also change. Sometimes a person leaves the movie dissatisfied, but when they think about it better, they end up liking it more. Draw your own conclusions. But remember, okay, who will decide if you will watch the movie or not is you. Don't let negative reviews bother you. Also, don't get too excited with positive reviews. Try to stay moderate and make your decisions. Don't let others speak for you. But that's it, folks. Comment below what you thought about all this. And don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.